Okay, so we're here looking at the TP-Link AC3550, model number EAP225. So I really haven't got to know much about this product at all, but from reading on forums and a couple of Facebook posts where this exact product was actually suggested, I believe this product supports out-of-the-box VLANs as well as virtual Wi-Fi adapters. So we're able to use this to divide up our Wi-Fi network using only one device for distributing multiple different SSIDs, so we can segregate our network into a few different Wi-Fi networks for things like IoT devices, phones, laptops, and other different use cases that you may decide to use this on. So let's take a look at opening this box. The first thing I'm noticing is it's got a really nice plastic wrap on it, which is nice when items get shipped because it helps stop water if they get a little wet from getting into them. Now, it is pretty commonplace these days for this, but I have received a few items like our switch that we unboxed the other day that this wasn't true for. So it is something that I like to see. All right, so we got the plastic wrap off, and now let's take and see how we get into this box. And no little plastic sealing tab to make sure the box hasn't been opened other than that plastic wrap, which again isn't really a quality thing. Now, first thing I'm noticing looking in here as I dig into the box is we have a nice cast tray for opening it. Now, I don't know how I feel about that. I definitely like the custom packaging, but it does feel a little bit cheaper than the Switch we opened the other day. And you're noticing a lot more things just stuffed in little tiny bags. But they did apparently provide mounting hardware, it looks like. And here's some more, I would say, mounting hardware. And more, this is the PoE injector, and there's more mounting hardware with that. So it looks like provided all of us. But notice packaging, when you compare it to some of the other things. This power cable is just stuffed in this bag and half zip tied together in a bag, not neatly done up. I don't know, it doesn't feel as nice as the Switch that we opened earlier in the day. And, we're wrapped in plastic, but the plastic is just taped together. It's not even really nice, and there's holes in the plastic. So what good does this plastic really provide as far as protecting the part during shipping? I mean, maybe some scuff protection, but foam or something like that would do the same. But the product's light. The product's very, very light, and it definitely feels soft. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, but it doesn't feel like a good high-quality product. Now, this product's, I think, less than $60. So, with that being said, it's not an extremely expensive AC router. And it definitely doesn't support the highest outputs. This product's claim to fame is really the software inside of it supporting both VLANs and supporting virtual Wi-Fi networks without flashing something like DDWRT onto it. And I don't know, I've been playing with DDWRT a little bit lately, and it's getting harder and harder to really find a router that can be flashed and use all the features. I ran into a lot of Broadcom issues and stuff, even using the database, trying it was just not as fun of an experience as it used to be when you were flashing things like the WRT54Gs that just worked out of the box. I mean, it's an open source firmware that's not necessarily, it's community developed for these things, and I love it, and I'm not trying to knock on it because it's a great tool, but this is supposed to do that with factory support. Now, all of us know, if we're in the IT world at all, that open source support is probably got better security monitoring and security auditing and other things because people are doing it on their personal time for their personal use. But with that being said, sometimes it's nice to just grab a factory part and use a factory part without spending hours modifying it. So that was what this was supposed to be. And you'll see all this come together in an upcoming video. And we're definitely going to take a look at the web interface and see what's available before we conclude this video. But I am looking forward to adding this to what we're calling our micro home lab build, which is basically what I've designated the entry steps for a really good advanced user home setup. Now, we're not going to be touching upon much virtualization or anything in this build, but it's going to be good storage and good Wi-Fi security with overall good controllable routing behavior. So definitely like, share, subscribe, click the notification bell so you can follow us and check out that build. And go back through our videos, look at some of like our cluster home lab build and stuff, because we do try to do a lot of budget builds here for the DIYer and the entrance level enthusiast. Okay, so we're here at the TP-Link Eap225 Web Interface. And it was not an uncommon path to getting into this web interface, but it definitely wasn't the most fun. So some of the literature, or most of the literature, wants you to install some cell phone app to connect to that. And I know I've had a few other devices going that way, and a lot of the manufacturers want you to do that. They believe it's easier, or I don't know. Not going to go there. But anyways, I was able to get to a web interface here with this particular TP-Link by doing a few things. So the first one is I had to connect to it with Wi-Fi. I was unable to use Ethernet to connect to it. Now, this isn't a router, so it only has your one Ethernet port and you're over PoE, and it is actually a dynamic IP address from out of the box being an access point. So I had to connect it to my router in order to allow my DHCP server to assign it an IP address so I could begin talking to it. And then I had to browse to this TP-Link EAP.net website, which is actually on my personal network. And with that, I was able to get on to the web management console. And the password out of the box is admin for a username and admin for a password. So when you log in, the first thing you're going to see is a prompt to change your username and a password. That's right, folks. This device actually allows you to set your own username. Unlike some of your other Netgear devices, maybe? Yeah, I know, that's a call out. But that really annoys me that Netgear, in most of their devices, and even some of their high-end consumer-grade devices, forces you to use admin as a username. So we can set up a username. We're going to set ours up as VE right now, and a password. And I know, folks, this says it's low. This is just kind of our default. I'm going to go in and completely reconfigure this device after this initial setup. I'll restore it to factory defaults, and I'll set up my own settings for things like this that will be mine. So anyways, we can go in here. And the next step it asks you to do right out of the box before you can get to the web interface is configure your SSIDs and your password. And I'm going to call it one VE1 and give it a password. And we'll call the other one VE2 and give it a password. And again, simple passwords. So at this applying screen, we're going to have to give it a few minutes, but we're actually going to find we get kicked off of our Wi-Fi, and we're going to have to go re-find the Wi-Fi. So you probably didn't see me reconnect to the Wi-Fi because most likely I'm editing that out for my own privacy and my neighbor's privacy, but we did go ahead and we reconnected to the VE1 Wi-Fi, and we're able to now refresh this page. And once we've refreshed the page, we get in finally to the web management console, and we can start looking at what this device has to offer out of the box without any custom firmware or operating system installed on it. And I've been here perusing a little bit before I decided to create this video, and I'm relatively happy with what I'm seeing here so far. I mean, it's not the most feature-rich access point that I've seen, but with that being said, this is a sub $60 access point that can support a lot of the more high-end business features. I believe it's actually in TP-Link's business lineup that you might want to use for what you'd say your home lab or your advanced user home setup that we've been talking about building in this budget environment here, and that I'm setting up for necessarily my winter location. So with that, we can look at Wi-Fi, and you can see that we have a couple SSIDs available here to us, and we have some radio information here. Now, I'm not entirely sure. This looks like stats, but I'm not seeing right off here, and hopefully we do find it later, a way to create virtual Wi-Fi, because one of the things that the suggestion for this device that was done on my post was that I could create virtual Wi-Fi with this device. So hopefully we can find a way to do that, because that's definitely something I want for this device. And if we clicked here, we could see clients, but there's a little more information than I'd like to share on that tab. So then if we go to wireless, we can actually look and we can see our 2.4 gigahertz radio, and we can see that it's turned on. We can see some information here about that. And again, I'm not really seeing a way, maybe right here, maybe that's the add button. Maybe I can create virtual Wi-Fi here by clicking that. We'll probably look at that maybe in more of this home lab setup as we continue on with this extremely budget home network setup that we're doing, that this unboxing is part of, but that's possibly where we'll go. We can see some channel information and some load balancing information. So that's more hint that indeed this device will support virtual Wi-Fi connections. So moving on, we can see portal and some information here for configuration. I'm not totally sure what this is all about yet. I haven't really played with it, but there is some like guest Wi-Fi access control that's run through Facebook available on this device, and that might possibly be what this is all about. Here's our VLANs, and we can actually create more VLANs. And if you notice, we're actually able to assign Wi-Fi connections. Here's the VE1 and 2 for the 2.4 and 5 gigahertz that we created in the initial setup. And we can actually go enable here and assign it a VLAN ID. So again, really good. This access points in the sub $60 price range is definitely looking like we're going to be able to use it to create multiple virtual Wi-Fi networks and pass them through our managed switch. And if you haven't seen the unboxing on our GS1200-5 5-port managed switch, go ahead and check that out. It's definitely a great sub $30 budget managed switch, and I think you'll really enjoy it if you're on the same small apartment, small home lab build, that criteria that we're looking at for our winter living location. So with that being said, it looks like we definitely are supporting VLAN IDs, and we do have MAC filtering available to us. Now, I don't know, I've read so many mixed reviews about MAC filtering. It could be beneficial. It definitely stops somebody that may or may not be trying to get in with like a spoofed Mac. But remember, they can spoof a Mac of your device, and you can see that as you're trying to hack your way in. So it's an added level maybe for a novice user, but I think it's going to be more or less just a nuisance for you because it only adds a few seconds of hindrance to somebody trying to crack into your network. They already have your SHA files at that point if they've cracked your password, and they're pretty sure it's right. So it's something they're going to try to do is mimic your device right off. So, but it is available if you like that type of thing. And if you disagree with my reasonings or have a reasoning that maybe I missed, go ahead and drop us a comment. I love to hear your guys' opinions, and sometimes I'm even able to learn from you guys. Well, actually, a lot of time I'm able to learn from you guys. I'm definitely a hobbyist enthusiast here and not an IT professional. My background is actually machining, as I've told you many times, so I love to learn from you guys. All right, so we have a scheduler, which I think means that we can turn SSD IDs on and off as time goes on. I haven't explored too much into this. Band sharing or steering. This is kind of cool. It allows you to shape the actual direction or path of your Wi-Fi towards particular devices so that they get more strength. And it looks like you need to, from what this says, have your 2.4 and 5 gigahertz devices on the same SSID. I don't know if that's going to work with our virtual SSIDs. That will be something to play with. That's maybe pretty interesting to check out. I know I'm definitely going to be in a apartment/condo environment with neighbors pretty close to me when we're running this device, and having maybe them get less internet. I mean, I'm not going to have much problem, but maybe if we're not overlapping with them as much or something, that could be beneficial. I know channel overlap, when you have a lot of devices, can definitely cause some interference and speed limitations. We have QoS here. Now, I'm not seeing the normal QoS configurations that are possibly just made easier for consumers and consumer routers, but it does look like we have some voice and some best effort and some background settings here. Definitely looking to play with that. I don't think in this location, from my knowledge of what internet we have available to us, and we're planning to purchase for this location, that I'm going to need much QoS, but here at our headquarters, I definitely need QoS. I'm very much on rural internet, although I'm much better off than some of our other neighbors because I have a business account. But with that being said, we definitely suffer from speeds. And we have some rogue AP detection. Now, I'm definitely going to want to configure this. And by looking at this, I kind of dove into it a little bit. I'm going to have to configure it when I'm down there. But that's definitely something I'll want to configure in that location, and I'm excited to have the options. Now, getting into management, we can see we're actually set to a dynamic IP. We can set a static if we want, and our default IP address is going to be 192.168.0.254. So if you're setting this device up after me, you may be able to use an Ethernet cable and an Ethernet adapter if you're on a MacBook like I am. But anyways, an Ethernet cable, set your device to the 192.168.0 subnet range with a /24, of course, but and log into this device without going through the whole process of connecting it to the internet and using the TP-Link EAP.net URL that I had to use. So that might be some good information. We have some system logs here with some information. Can always be useful if you need it. Web server information, it's pretty basic, but you are able to change the server port and the secure server port if you want. That can be useful. Remember, it's the IP address with a colon and then the port if you do that. But that could be fairly useful for obscuring things. But again, if somebody's on your network with Nmap, by the point they're trying to look for a configuration, it's maybe an inconvenience at that point. I don't know. Again, post your comments below. And layer 3 accessibility, I can enable and disable that. Management access, I can definitely define a VLAN for management, which is nice to do. And I can limit it to certain Macs. So like, and I could set my wife's laptop and my laptop and nothing else, so that way if maybe we had kids or company or guests or tenants, I don't know, any of the above, they couldn't get in and configure this device and change the settings. Now, again, they're trying to hack in. I don't know how well it'll stop them, but it's definitely, I think, better than Mac filtering as far as a deterrent, as far as getting into the web interface. We have LED controls, so we can turn the LEDs on and off. That's kind of cool. We have some SSH options, and it's defaulting to the default SSH port 22, layer 3 accessible, SSH login needs to be turned on, of course. You like that type of thing and manage via that? We do have the available settings. SNMP settings are also available if you use that. And now we can go to system settings. We can add usernames, manage usernames and stuff here. Controller settings. This does have like a group business controller that you can link to this device and use with it. And this is probably where you set all that up. If you're interested in that, you're probably not watching my video. And if you are, great. I love to have you. We don't have one. I probably won't be using one due to our network size and management. Someday, if you're with TP-Link and you'd like me to do a video about it, I'd love to, but I don't see that happening anytime soon. We have some time settings here. I assume this is for time servers on your network. We can reboot, standard, make backup files, pretty standard, and firmware update.